We believe in the viability of theatrical. We've tried to be opportunistic and wait for the environment to be right. And I think we've been successful in doing that. But, Top Gun has been a 2-year wait. And I think all the wait was worth it. And there were a lot of doubters leading up to this release about, hey, we've had 4 or 5 release dates and, hasn't this movie come out already? Well, now it has.
This is the Boxoffice Podcast. I am Daniel Loria, the editorial director of Boxoffice Pro, the only publication in North America exclusively dedicated to covering the world of theatrical exhibition. Today we've got another exciting episode going over the global box office figures for Top Gun Maverick. We have here joining us our co-host Rebecca Pahle, deputy editor of Boxoffice Pro, and we have also joining us from our colleagues at Boxoffice Pro France, Romeo Duchene. Together we will be going over that global box office opening weekend of Top Gun Maverick, which set a domestic record for the Memorial Day weekend. And later on in today's episode, Rebecca Pahle will be speaking with 4 of the filmmakers behind the NATO Young Filmmaker Program, an initiative by the National Association of Theater Owners to engage young filmmakers on the theatrical experience and making movies for movie theaters. But let's just jump right in here. There's a lot of numbers to go through. Let's call this a victory lap episode because it's a lot of good news. Romeo, Rebecca, I know you guys have already seen the movie, so you might have done something else this weekend. How's this long holiday weekend for you?
Well, I did not go to the movies. I did spend a lot of time, it's the beginning of the summer season, Memorial Day weekend, and thus it is when my boyfriend's neighborhood pool opened. So I had to do that, and I am very sunburned right now, but happy that Top Gun did well.
Romeo, this is your first holiday weekend here in the United States since you moved to LA from Paris. How was Memorial Day weekend in Los Angeles for you?
Well, hello everyone. Hello Rebecca, hello Daniel. And that was my first Memorial weekend for me. And I went to see Top Gun for the second time. But that was my very first time in a proper theater in the States. So I went to the AMC Promenade 16 in the Valley in Woodland Hills. And in the Dolby Vision, that was a great experience. Even I already watched that movie at CinemaCon. But in Dolby Vision, that was just great. I mean, the cinema experience was awesome, and I was very surprised to see that many people in the theater. So great weekend.
I'm a huge fan of anything to do with movie theater concessions. And Romeo, I know in France that's not such a thing. What were your thoughts on the concessions culture of American multiplexes?
Yeah, I have to be honest. I was a little bit shocked when I entered the theater and I directly smelled that salty concession smell, and I was very surprised. And when I entered the theater, I've seen that there's concession box office stuff, and it just felt like the Burger King in Champs-Élysées in Paris. That was kind of the same size. So I was like, oh, that's funny.
Well, let's go into the numbers here because it was the best Memorial Day opening weekend here at the domestic box office and the best opening weekend for star Tom Cruise with Top Gun Maverick, a 126.7 million 3-day opening weekend. When we include that 4-day holiday weekend, that Memorial Day Monday, it rises up to 156 million, guys. Rebecca, domestically, this was a big weekend, and we know that AMC Theaters, the top cinema circuit here in the United States, not only counted with Romeo's first trip to an American movie theater, it was the first time for a lot of older audiences coming back. They released a press release this morning touting the results.
Yeah, there were about 4 million guests who came to an AMC in the United States total through the 4-day weekend, 2/3 of them for Top Gun Maverick. So we definitely have seen that this movie is successful in getting people back to the cinemas when maybe they haven't gone. That includes that demographic that we've been talking so much about during this recovery period, older ticket buyers, which in the press release, they count that as 35 and older. So I'm just gonna not let that hurt my ego and say, yes, the 35 years and older are the old moviegoers, and 55% of tickets to Top Gun Maverick was from that demographic. So some good numbers, and America was not alone in that when it comes to the performance of Top Gun Maverick, for sure.
Yeah, an unbelievable international opening weekend, and Romeo will be going over those numbers shortly. I want to just dig into some of these domestic demographic numbers that we got from Paramount over the weekend. Rebecca, you went over a couple of those very generally. A male skewing film here, 58% male here in the United States, 45% of moviegoers being under the age of 35, meaning that the lion's share here are people over 35 years old going to the cinema, many of them coming back for the first time since the pandemic. The largest audience segment domestically, however, was in the 18 to 24 range. Actually, 21% of moviegoers went out to see Top Gun Maverick. That was a big question we had ahead of release. How will younger audiences look at a movie like Top Gun Maverick that was a cultural milestone in the 80s?
And a statistic that actually interested me, Daniel, I know there's this kind of perception maybe of a lot of the film industry. It's very, East Coast, West Coast, very, those big metropolises. But Top Gun Maverick actually over-indexed in markets all across the United States.
That's right, Rebecca. We had a great over-indexing performance outside of that New York and Los Angeles market bubble that usually leads the domestic box office here in the United States. We had a great result in the West, and specifically cities like Phoenix, Salt Lake City, Seattle, San Diego. In the Southeast, we had Tampa Bay over-indexing. And in the middle of the country, cities like Kansas City, Nashville, and Oklahoma City really doing a lot better than they usually do with a movie like this one. If we look at the top grossing theaters here provided by Paramount for this film, it's actually an interesting and eclectic mix around the country. So we had Los Angeles and New York, as usually is the case when we have a big opening weekend, but also cities like Nashville, San Antonio, Knoxville, Denver, Dallas, Washington, D.C., Portland, Oregon, Fresno, Orlando, a really varied mix. We can safely say this was a movie that domestically really spoke to a large section of the wide audience in the United States.
Knoxville and Kansas City, I wonder if Regal and AMC were like closing their headquarters early to let people go.
That's a good question. We'll see. I mean, Knoxville, you had Kansas City. Absolutely. Those were big exhibition hubs. And you also have Dallas, obviously, where we have not too far away Plano, Cinemark being headquartered. These numbers are reflective of a domestic audience that really supported the film. And I think that pairs out when we look at the global opening weekend. It's very rare, guys, to see a studio blockbuster capture half of its global market share from North America alone. That happened here. Overseas markets combined to a very positive $126 million. Romeo, you're looking at the data here internationally. That was led by the United Kingdom.
Yeah, exactly. UK did like almost 20 million US dollar. For most of international markets, what we can like remember, the best opening since No Way Home, basically. And so now I think every market is looking into very long legs. They hope for that because in a couple of weeks we have a Jurassic World Dominion. So yeah, I think Tom Cruise did already a lot of great record, especially in the UK, leading the international opening. And France is his second one with almost 12 million dollars, and it's all, again, best opening since No Way Home. Will he cross the 4 million admission mark? I don't know. Tom Cruise only crossed that mark 2 times in his career in France, for instance, with Rain Man and Mission Impossible for the first one. So it's going to be a challenge. Challenge is still there. And I'm heading to see what Jurassic World is about to do, because I think we don't have shown on the show today, but I think the opening for Jurassic World should be around the same opening as Top Gun, but without with a 1 day less. So probably around 150, 160 for the domestic market.
That'll be interesting to see. And if we look from a dollar for dollar basis here in the French market with comparables from not that long ago, No Time to Die opening at 9.6 million in France, Mission Impossible Fallout opening at 8.6 million. So that 11.7 from the French market, as you say, Romeo, really the best opening weekend since Spider-Man. A nice bit of momentum here. What did it look like at the concession stand? Because we know we're also tracking this data through our parent company, the box office company, how ticket sales lead to some of that concession spend. How does it track with how concessions have sold in the French market so far?
Yeah, so like we said in the introduction, French market regarding concession is very, very different from the US market. So number I'm about to say will probably say nothing to you, and it will be probably 2 or 3 times that number for the US market. So on the average, for the past few years, around 10 or 12% of the audience also buy something to eat or something to drink. For Top Gun, this weekend it was 8.1%, so just a little bit below the average, but I think it's mostly explained by the kind of audience we had in France this weekend. Let's not forget that in France, they had also a holiday that was, I think, on the first day, and everyone took their Friday off, so it was like a 5-day weekend as usual in France, you know. So I think from people that are not used to go to theater at least 2 or 3 times a year, it's probably why they are not used to buy a concession. So this is probably why it's a bit below the average. And I'm not really worried that it will probably catch the average, just above the average. But to give you a little bit of comparable titles, it's kind of the same as the opening weekend for concession for Batman or for Batman in June, actually. Spider-Man obviously was a little bit above that 8%. Yeah.
Man, if I go to France and start going to see movies in movie theaters, then I'll like up your percent at your concessions average, just like my own self.
That may be the case. It's always fascinating to see just how this movie-going experience and theatrical culture changes from market to market, even when the box office it looks to activate different sectors of the audience. The last one here that we have on the list from the top-performing overseas markets is actually Australia, where the film opened to a very impressive 10.7 million from 343 locations. Rebecca, this was the biggest opening weekend for a Tom Cruise film and the biggest live action Paramount title. I mean, all in all, we have to say great results from a movie that had a fair share of questions leading up to the release.
And I really do wonder now, I mean, what the situation is going to be with potential sequels. I mean, you got to imagine that Paramount wants to franchise this thing. So I'm interested to see where this goes from here, if anywhere. I mean, Tom Cruise is busy with Mission Impossible at Paramount as well.
Yeah, I think that's a fair question as we head deeper into this IP-dominated universe here, where every studio needs to have big franchise IPs, and they also need to have their own streaming service sort of speaking to one another. How this works into that Paramount landscape is anyone's guess, but what we can tell, at least so far after the opening weekend, is that it was worth the wait. I spoke with Chris Aronson, the president of domestic distribution over at Paramount, on Sunday after we got these box office numbers to get his reaction on what this means for theatrical distribution's viability moving forward for a studio like Paramount, and if they feel comfortable with pushing it so many times after seeing this result.
Well, look, I think we've hit it out of the park on pretty much everything we've done, starting with The Quiet Place Part 2, which was quite a risk at the time. But, look, we believe in the viability of theatrical. We've tried to be opportunistic and wait for the environment to be right, and I think we've been successful in doing that. But, Top Gun has been a 2-year wait. And I think all the wait was worth it. And there were a lot of doubters leading up to this release about, hey, we've had 4 or 5 release dates and, hasn't this movie come out already? Well, now it has. I'm encouraged, Daniel, by obviously the results are fantastic. I think the breadth of the audience is fantastic. The reception to the film is just off the charts. And some things are just worth the wait.
Clearly, a lot of people did wait to see this film despite those myriad delays, and waiting to see the film, and then when they do, seeing it in one of those premium formats. Back again, looking at the domestic market, 22% of the overall box office came from premium ticket sales, of which 15% came from IMAX screens specifically. And I got to say, I mean, having seen it at CinemaCon, it is the, big screen experience. best sound, best audio, best visual you can get. You want to go for that. Daniel, what else did Chris Harrison have to say? Maybe about how Top Gun Maverick kind of met up with their expectations.
Yeah, that's actually something I asked him directly, right when we were looking at those Sunday numbers. We had the advantage of seeing how it was performing in pre-sales, getting these updates from the studio on Friday and Saturday. So here once again is Chris Harrison speaking on the performance of Top Gun Maverick's opening weekend.
I think it's exceeded all of our expectations. You know, you're cautious. You're always cautiously optimistic. We always believed in this film. I mean, I saw this film for the first time in 2019 and believed in it from the moment I saw it because it's just epic motion picture entertainment. I think the exit polls bear that out. They're stratospheric. Yeah, it's really extraordinary when you consider the type of company that this movie is in. And at its core, this is a human interest drama. This is not a superhero movie. It's quite remarkable. And, it's extremely gratifying for us, for Tom, for Jerry, and the entire cast and crew. I mean, it's just the validation of a lot of hard work.
And that was Paramount's president of domestic distribution, Chris Harrison, speaking to us about that opening weekend performance of Top Gun Maverick. Great record weekend here in the United States. We're excited to see how it continues to develop in the coming weeks and months. And as we close out this segment, I do have to ask you, Romeo, before we head over to our feature interview, to talk a little bit about your expectations overseas for a movie like Jurassic World Dominion. That's opening next week. We know this is going to be the next blockbuster, and it's going to be coming out of this great big push that Top Gun Maverick gave it. Any initial observations, expectations, or questions that you have ahead of that release from Universal?
Yeah, well, it's very difficult for me to be objective for Jurassic World. I mean, Jurassic Park was the very first feature I've seen, so I'm very difficult to be objective. But I bet it's gonna be the highest grossing movie for 2022, and I think, like we mentioned, the opening weekend for the domestic market should be around 150, 160. I think this is where the forecast is right now. So a little bit above the Tom Cruise one, and yeah, and I think why Tom Cruise and Paramount had this success also is because the marketing was very well executed. They focused on the big screen experience. They focused like, okay, this movie is an event. This kind of audience now react to events. We saw that with Spider-Man. And they are all playing with the same nostalgia thing, bringing the old character. We saw that in No Way Home, bringing Top Gun again, and bringing the old character and the initial character from the Jurassic Park and from the first one. So yeah, I don't think I'm taking too much risks saying it's gonna be even a success, even more that we didn't expected.
I think that's right. And if we look at that domestic opening weekend forecast that we have over at boxofficepro.com, we've got a wide range here between 160 million to 110 million for that opening weekend in North America. We're going to be providing daily updates to those figures over at boxofficepro.com. This could easily become a $500 million film domestically. The type of releases that we really need here, building on each other as we head into the summer and start recovering a lot of that ground that was lost over the last 2 years. Romeo, Rebecca, thanks so much for this quick news segment. And now, Rebecca, let's take it away to your feature interview with the 4 filmmakers that form part of the NATO Young Filmmaker Program.
Yeah, Daniel, at CinemaCon, I had the opportunity to speak with 4 of the filmmakers behind NATO's Young Filmmaker Program, as well as Aviva Kleiner and Bill Lathrop, who head up that program. It's actually a really interesting initiative where NATO taps working filmmakers to make these shorts about the power and the magic of going to the movies. You can find those shorts on our website, boxofficepro.com, or on NATO's official YouTube channel. All 3 of them are really excellent, and I was able to speak with the directors behind 2 of those being Ed Hellman and Katie Staub, who directed There's Nothing Like It, about a mom taking her kids to the cinema. It's really nice and cute. And then the animated Oddly Satisfying Cinema, which is from Kelly Schweisfall and Noah Sterling. So I will say, please do go and check out those short films. They are really great. Please do share them on social media. NATO is encouraging exhibitors to do so. I will ask before I cut to this feature interview here for a bit of grace. from our listeners, because this was filmed at CinemaCon at Caesar's Palace, at, if you can believe it or not, pretty much the quietest place we could find. There's still background noise, but Caesar's Palace. I hope anyone who's been to CinemaCon can understand that. But without further ado, let's hear from some of the cream behind the NATO Young Filmmakers Program. I am joined today by two pairs of filmmakers who participated in the NATO Filmmakers Program. How did you come to be involved in this program? I mean, it's something designed specifically to reignite a love of the big screen, a love of movie-going. Is that something that, you already felt and were passionate about? How did you come to create your films?
When we heard that NATO was looking to work directly with creatives, that seemed like a very unique, special opportunity, and we're felt really lucky to, get the chance to interface with people that feel so passionately about the audience experience, and also the experience of those, responsible for creating that audience experience, the theater owners, and it's just a side of the filmmaking process that I think is a little bit new to us and not what we focus on, but it's great to see how passionate people are.
As filmmakers, how do you feel about, I feel like often there's a disconnect between filmmakers and the exhibition, like how your film actually gets shown. It almost kind of feels like it's treated like an afterthought sometimes. Did you, what was it like seeing your film on the huge screen? Not even big screen, it was pretty huge.
It was a large screen, and we welcomed it. But I think really what this opportunity has extended to us is this recognition that we need those who are behind the scenes, who are building these opportunities for us. As much as they need the content and the work and the creative, if it were not for these people in this industry, this back end, there would be no theater. There would be no opportunity to share our work and the work of others with a greater audience. And so there's a camaraderie now. There's a support system that we didn't really even recognize was there necessarily, because we immediately associated with business. And that's not the case. We've seen the passion. It's surfaced. We might be on opposite sides of the film industry, but that passion is there no matter who you are and the role that you play.
Also, we have Kelly and Noah, who did Oddly Satisfying Cinema, which is an animated short that just, the sound of it and just really gets across the sensations in a kind of impressionistic, surrealistic way of going to the cinema. I was really impressed by the sound on your guys'. How was it like? Same question, seeing it, hearing it played in that system for that huge audience.
We knew going in that, one of the key things that would make this concept work, which was, the concept was always to highlight, the subtle or very sensory moments in the theater that makes it come alive, that makes it so visceral to people. And the beauty of animation is that you can heighten those experiences and portray them in a visual medium that not only shows, the actions themselves, but heightens them to, like you said, a bit more of an expressionistic expression of those moments. And so a lot of thought went into the sound.
The world of sound is a creative language in and of itself, of subtly and playfully tricking your audience to really heighten the sounds more than what you hear in real life. I think with this project, it was not about real life. It was about going a step or 10 beyond to really emphasize and add this magic that we don't always perceive. We're not always attuned to it. So our soundscape is as if you were as attuned as you could possibly be to everything all at once. And that's kind of the magic of the project, is in your daily life, you just might not notice. It's the things we take for granted. And after COVID, we couldn't take them for granted anymore. We miss those things. So our project celebrates from your head to your toes all of the senses that you just miss, that place you in the theater space, that make you present, that bring your body and mind alive when you're encapsulated by the cinema experience. So that sound process that really places you in that space was so integral and so fun. It was such a joyful process of play and experimentation, and we all, Aviva and Katie and Noah and me and our team, we were all playing essentially, and tweaking and adjusting. What do you think?
What's the best fizz of a Coca-Cola product or something?
And I thought that was really awesome. I think in our project there was a lot of play, and that is one of the most magical things that you can ever instill into your work. So I was really happy to see that come alive in the sound and in the picture as well.
Do you remember the first movie you guys saw in a theater?
Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
Oh god, that.
And I took a tiny flashlight into the theater because I was 6 years old, and I was scared of the dark, and so I took the tiny flashlight in case it was going to be too dark and scary.
Oh.
And I didn't realize, because it was my first time going to the theater, that the big screen lights up, it illuminates the whole environment, and so I didn't feel scared. And you know what? I loved the hell out of that movie.
The first movie I remember seeing on a huge screen was a drive-in movie. This is very Jersey summer, my childhood, and we probably saw, they do the classic double feature, so we probably saw Fantastic Four or something like that when I was really young. But my parents wanted to stay and see War of the Worlds. And they said, oh, they'll fall asleep. And I was like,
how old were you? Because that's like kids, there's some pretty hardcore kids in peril action.
Oh, I was
in that film.
I was young. And I was like, I'm sleeping, with one eye open, like, what is happening? I was engrossed by that movie and launched into the world of cinema.
Katie, I mean, what was your experience, first movie-going experience as traumatic?
Well, my first movie-going experience, and this will date me, was Bible Goes West when I was very young. But the movie experience, and I've shared this with Aviva and Ed, the movie experience that really, really opened my world to the magic of movies was The Rocketeer, and this is an absolute true story. It was not about the narrative, it wasn't about the characters. It's the scene in the movie when the Rocketeer is disguised as a waiter and comes over to Jennifer Connelly's character's table. He needs to slip her a secret message. In her bowl is the message, but so that her guest does not see this message, he ladles tomato soup in the bowl. But the thing about this tomato soup is that it wasn't the classic milky, creamy Campbell's. It was this bright red, fresh tomato soup. I had such a problem with milk. I always hated tomato soup with milk in it. And here it was that I didn't have to have dairy within my delicious bowl of earthy goodness. And truly, that has always stayed with me. And I think it goes to show you that when you sit in front of a film and you climb inside, that you're entering a world that is completely unknown to you. And here I am, 9 years old, and it's changed my life in the littlest way, but it's changed my life. And it's
you're a filmmaker.
It's an education, right?
It's like you get into the different world, and the theater is the way station.
My parents were really good about taking me to the movies. They knew I loved it, but I think what stuck with me more was the first time my parents took me to a movie, which was Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, that they wanted to see, where it was the first time I realized that one, that they were letting me into their world, and also that this was something that I didn't have to grow out of, that parents and adults had this fantasy world too, that they were just as into as I was, and seeing that, it's like the inverse of our movie of I remember watching my parents watch that movie as a little kid and just being they like movies too? This is for adults? This is for everybody?
I'm an adult now.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
Kind of.
I have no idea what's going on in the movie, but
I feel sophisticated.
Yeah.
Look at this. This
it
is
was
amazing.
just so special that they cared enough about that they wanted to share it with me,
And it feels significant because you're not just sitting on your sofa.
Right.
You put in an effort to go out and pay money and spend time. You're not doing anything else. It is literally just you're only watching the movie. And, you might be checking your phone, but if you are, you need to leave.
I feel that way about Matrix. That movie, the first Matrix movie came out the year I was born. And my parents loved that movie. And The Matrix represents to me the way in which parents and cinema can be this way to connect generations and the way to pass stories down, but also how stories get remixed and reinterpreted. I think with my generation now and talking about being trans and having that be a way in which that movie was reinterpreted, and maybe it wasn't written that way or wasn't even consciously written that way, but now for people in my generation, that's a keystone film in self-acceptance and self-expression and breaking away from the mold, breaking away from the norm, right? And that was not the first film that I ever saw, but definitely that hand-me-down, that come into my world, that this is something we are so excited about, and you probably don't even get it. I don't even think I had touched a computer at the point when I saw The Matrix.
Aviva, let me finish up by asking you, I mean, what's this is the first year that you've done this with NATO. What's the future of this program, and what's the future of these 3 films, 2 of which, we're talking about now? I know cinemas are being encouraged to share them on social. Are they going to be continue to screen? What's the future for these films and the program?
Well, so the future for these films is that NATO has made them available to everyone in the industry, which is really, really exciting, because it's not always easy to get access to content. NATO is making this really easy to share on social media, to put a DCP on your screens. In addition to the films, we have behind the scenes content. So if you've got movie fans in your network, you can actually show them the making of the film. You can actually show them interviews with the filmmakers and stills from the films themselves. So it's not just the films that they're supporting. I mean, these are films that are meant to inspire people to go back to the theater.
They make you think about what you take for granted.
Absolutely. And it's subtle, but it taps into what we love about the big screen experience. And so for people to share that content in the industry, it's all about supporting the industry. But it's also about supporting up-and-coming filmmakers, because these filmmakers are real filmmakers. They're working in the industry right now. These are the filmmakers that are going to be making the blockbusters of tomorrow. So every brand within this industry that shares them, they're not only supporting their own industry, but they're supporting the filmmakers that are going to make the industry better tomorrow. So there is a toolkit which we'll make access to, so that way, when you share it with box office listeners, everybody can access it. And that's what's happening with this campaign right now, which is really exciting. For the future, in September, with the start of the fall semester, we're going to be launching this campaign nationwide across college campuses all over the U.S. And allow filmmakers in school and graduate filmmakers to come up with their own ideas around what it means to go to the movies and what makes it so special, and actually get an opportunity to pitch to NATO directly and its members, come up with concepts, and a certain amount of them will be selected to be created as a school project. Those filmmakers will get paid to create that campaign, which again will go back to all NATO members and allow them to send that campaign out to their network. And so it's a platform that's meant to create this mutually beneficial relationship between NATO, its members in the industry, and also filmmakers and creatives that are making the blockbusters of tomorrow.
I mean, it makes you think at the International Day, one of the panels with Denis Villeneuve, he was like, I wish I could be more involved in how my film is shown. There are so many middlemen and what have you, and it's like, do you feel like after this process or being here at CinemaCon has made you think differently about cinemas and the nuts and bolts and the choices that go into, I mean, Katie, I know you said you have a different perspective. I mean, what's your CinemaCon experience been like?
Well, I think we're one day in, and it's pretty fantastic. All the free candy aside, really is to witness sort of the makings of the theater experience is something that, I mean, it's one of those, you think you know, but you really don't know. And so it's really a gift to be surrounded by like-minded people, but also people who can teach us a thing or two.
This is really going back to what NATO is doing, and NATO's role in having all of the members, the exhibitors, caring for the business, right? But this is the first time they've really had a direct connection to filmmaking, to the content. And it's a big step for NATO and something they're really proud of. And so that's sort of the way I see this kind of step change in this program. Eva and these guys, they're really seeing that, okay, now we can actually have a role in the future of content. It's not just stewarding the customer experience and the relationships with the studios. It's how we really look at the future. So it's really that first time that direct connection with the content side.
Kelly and Noah, do you have anything to say about like the experience of behind the curtain of movie theaters? I mean, we're all from New York, which, like, apologies to Paris, does have the best movie theaters in the world.
Oh, 100%. I spent 2 years making an animated short, like undergrad, and in true New York fashion, the first place I ever showed it, the first time I ever made money from my own work was at a DIY projection, and it looked terrible, and I cried because it was washed out and gray. But also, in that moment, I realized everything that goes into curating that picture as it translates from digital file to screen to surround sound is important. And you want to honor the work. The people who are bringing these films to screens and to theaters honor the work so that we as audience members can enjoy it the way that it was meant to. And that crazy scenario really made me realize what that honoring process is like and all the love and work that goes into it, how special that is. Also, I wanted to comment on NATO's mission to connect with filmmakers directly, because I feel really grateful to be a part of this, because I think our concept is not one that you would see really in any other commercial space. It is odd in true title fashion. It is
oddly satisfying.
It is inspired by little cruxes of the internet, as well as our love of cinema, and it really feels like a piece that is from my own heart, which when you work in film and work in commercial film is not always something that you get to do. Making this project was an immense honor. It really felt like the most incredible opportunity to speak from the heart and to connect directly with everyone and to share a bit of myself, but to also bring everyone else into that and into that love and into that world. So I think NATO's mission came across, and I feel very grateful to have been a part of it.
Because I produce most of the work in the commercial space and the digital space, you know, that work is, you watch it once, you may or may not be paying attention. It may or may not be something that you skip after 5 seconds before the YouTube video you actually want to watch. It may or may not be something you have in the background. And I think that, you know, what makes movie theaters special is that they are a celebration of the work itself. They are a conduit and a place where people are focused just on the work, just on the craft, and can truly engage with it the way the creators intended. And there are so many things that go into that experience, and I think what's cool about CinemaCon is you get to see how many vendors, how many different businesses, how many different entrepreneurs all contribute to that experience to make the final viewing of the art something special.
Thank you guys so much for making the films, and I really look forward to seeing like your features on the big screen.
And thanks again to the 4 filmmakers that form part of the NATO Young Filmmaker Program. That was Rebecca Pahle interviewing the 4 of them a couple of weeks back at CinemaCon. We're happy to bring you those insights this week. From myself, Rebecca, and our colleague over at Box Office Pro France, Romeo Duchene, thank you once again for tuning in. We will be back next week with our colleague Russ Fisher when Rebecca, Russ, and I go over the entire box office history of the Jurassic Park franchise universe world. We're getting galactic here in the Jurassic Park series. We'll be bringing that to you in next week's episode. Thanks again for listening. The Box Office Podcast is brought to you by Box Office Pro in collaboration with the Box Office Company and Recorded Podcast. New episodes come out every Thursday. Don't forget to rate us and subscribe every week.